Hi readers, Chris here. Welcome to my channel where I review fantasy, Stephen King, all sorts of books, and today I'm going to be talking about my favorite books from 2024. Before I jump in, I've been pretty sick for the past week. Some of you know because I've talked a little bit about it on Instagram, so if I don't look or sound my best, I'm trying. I am getting better, but I'm still sick. But I needed to do something to feel normal again. So that's why I'm doing this video. Normally I pick 10 favorite books of the year, but this year I only picked 8. And the reason for that is I originally had 12 picked out, and as I was going through them and trying to rank them and figure out, which ones I liked better, when it really came down to it, I'm like, I think there's only 8 that I truly think are my favorites of the year, my favorites. So I'm going to rank them number 8 to number 1 being the best, my favorite. But before I do that, I do have some honorable mentions. 2024 was a great reading year. The percentage of books that I liked compared to books that I didn't like, there were definitely way more books than I liked. I read 65 books altogether, which is pretty average for me. It might be a little bit on the low side, as if you've been around. This year has been particularly busy, but it's all been good. It's been a good year. The busyness finally caught up with me, and that's probably why I'm sick, but that's okay. So here's a couple books, honorable mentions, that didn't make it onto the list, but I still think are worth mentioning. And the first one is going to be Warcross by Marie-Lu. I literally just finished this book yesterday, December 31st. And I really, really, really enjoyed this book. I'm going to be talking about it more, but basically this young girl, she's a hacker. She's kind of down on her luck, about to be evicted, totally out of options, when she gets the chance to go work for this big famous tech guru and his game, Warcross, which is this famous game excuse me, that everyone plays online. And there's another hacker that's trying to disrupt the game, and he hires her to be a hacker to also find the other hacker. And it's hacking, it's gaming, it's a lot about technology, about AI, and about what that really means, and the kind of the morality of it, I guess. And it's just really fun. It's like a cat and mouse game, but then there's a big twist at the end. This book was just really fun, really, really fun. And it was hard comparing this to all the other ones because I literally just read it. So I definitely have a bit of recency bias. I don't know that I would put it above any of the other books that I picked out, so that's why it's only an honorable mention, but I really enjoyed this one. Another honorable mention is going to be The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher. This was my second T. Kingfisher book and really has cemented, I really love T. Kingfisher. She's become one of my new favorite authors. And this book was recommended to me by Bad as Rad, and it was definitely a great recommendation. And it was between this book and one other T. Kingfisher book that ended up on my list. So since it wasn't this one, you'll see which one it is. But this is a kind of a horror book about a young girl. Her grandmother recently passed away, so she goes to clean out her grandmother's house. She finds this mysterious notebook that has all these crazy writings in it about the Twisted Ones, and then all of this weird stuff starts happening around the house, and there's scary creatures in the woods, and it's just super creepy but also super fun at the same time, and also has some of the absolute best side characters. Next honorable mention is Court by Tracy Wolff. This is the 4th book in her Crave series, which is about a young girl and a vampire that fall in love, yada, yada, yada. But this is the 4th book in the series, and some of you may remember when I read book 3, I kind of was like, oh, I think this series is going downhill. This book totally turned that around for me. I loved this book. I loved it because our main character well, let's just say that she really gets to explore her own powers in this one and her own destiny, and I think it turns out really great. There's also some new characters and one vampire character in particular who I absolutely loved. I feel like this book really does kind of go down this like girl power type road, and I personally love that stuff. So, love to see it. I loved seeing Grace explore her powers in this one, learning about them, claiming them in some sort of ways, and yeah, I feel like this book got the series back on track, and I really loved it. And then finally, this might be controversial, but House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas. This is the third book in her Crescent City series, and I actually think this book is my favorite of the series. I have made it know, like, there's no question that I have had issues with this series. I had issues with the first book, I had issues with the second book, and I do have some issues with this book too. However, like, I love this world so much. It's so much fun. And I feel like this book in particular dialed back on some of the things that I don't like. So the vulgarness, the language, dialed back in this book. The excessive sex, dialed back in this book. It's still in there, but it's much, much less of a focus than like the actual plot, which was a nice change for me. Not everyone might agree with that. So yeah, I think this is a great finale to this trilogy. There may be more, I don't know, but as far as this particular story, I think it wrapped it up well. And so yeah, I think that this deserves an honorable mention. So let's jump into my top 8 now. I'm not going to say too much about each of these books because A, I don't want this video to take forever, and B, I don't know how long my voice is going to last. So let's jump in with number 8, which is going to be Stalking Jack the Ripper by Kerri Maniscalco. This is the first book I've ever read by Kerri Maniscalco, and it definitely makes me want to read more. That's like one of the main reasons this book is on this list, because it makes me want to read more. More from this series, more from this author. This book is it's just fun. It is really fun. Solid fun. It takes place in in England in the past, around the time that Jack the Ripper is happening, and we have this young girl. She's like investigating these murders, and I love how she's into like all the macabre stuff. She's into like experimenting bodies and autopsies and like all this stuff that normal people would think like gross. She's really into that, and I think that's so fantastic. Like, that's such a nice change from seeing like, you know, prim, proper tea drinking lady. So I love that. I love the twist on that. I love the twists that happen in this book. Again, it's just fun. It's so much fun. And you're going to hear me say that about a couple books on this list, but that is why this one is in the number 8 spot. My 7th favorite book of the year is going to be A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. Yes, this is the other T. Kingfisher book I was talking about. I love this book. Also think it's super fun. But the reason I like this one better than Stalking Jack the Ripper or better than the Twisted Ones is, again, I just love the characters in this book so much. So we have a young girl named Cordelia, and her mother is a sorceress, but not just any sorceress. She is an evil sorceress. So they basically show up at this house, and her mother has a plan that she's basically gonna like seduce the noble guy, the lord that lives there, so that she can marry into his family and get his wealth and yada yada yada. The only thing that throws a wrench in this plan is that the lord she's trying to seduce has a sister, an older sister named Hester. So half the book is told from Cordelia's point of view, young girl. The other half of the book is told from Hester's point of view, the older sister. And I just think that it is so cool to have this older woman character be a main character in this like fantasy book. Hester is smart. She's capable. She's flawed. Like, she's definitely not perfect, but like when she realizes what's going on and like the situation that Cordelia is in, like she wants to help her brother, she wants to help Cordelia, she wants to help save the day, and she's willing to put herself at risk to do that. And I just think that's so cool. I love that T. Kingfisher puts older women characters in their books, and Hester, I think, is the best one yet. Like, absolutely, hands down, loved her. So it is specifically because of Hester why I picked this book over the Twisted Ones, even though I love them both, and over Stalking Jack the Ripper. My sixth favorite book of the year is going to be Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Faeries by Heather Fawcett. I was inspired to read this one by Nicole over at Nicole's Bookish Nook, and yeah, this book did not disappoint. Oh my god, did I fall in love with this book. I fell in love with the characters, I fell in love with the story, I fell in love with the world. So our main character is Emily Wilde. She is a professor, but she's also working on this encyclopedia where she is basically going out into the world and researching all these different types of fairies to make a complete encyclopedia. So this takes her to this like little remote island, a very small village that like doesn't like outsiders. So she has to like kind of set herself up there, try to get along with the locals, but also try to figure out what's going on with their fairy situation. And I love how much agency Emily has. Out of all the books on the list, I know I just said I loved Hester, but Emily might be my favorite female character. Like, she's so amazing because she's a professor, so she is super smart, but as smart as she is, she does not know everything, and she knows that she doesn't know everything. She knows that there's still more out there for her to learn. And I think that's just such an admirable quality for someone to have, someone to be so good at something, but still want to improve, like the constant need to improve. I think that's something we can all learn from. I also love how the fairies in this book, some of them are super dark and dangerous. They're not all little Tinkerbell, happy little fairies. No, like they are dangerous. And if you fall into their realm or under one of their spells, like you are in trouble. Also, Emily has a fantastic animal sidekick who is special in a way that I won't give away. But yeah, I absolutely love this book so much in so many ways. I will definitely recommend this to anyone, everywhere, and yeah, definitely deserved a spot on my list. My fifth favorite book of the year is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. Now, normally, I am not the biggest romantasy fan. I'm not the biggest lover of smut and all that. So imagine my surprise that I absolutely fell in love with this book. Absolutely fell in love with it. It's about a young girl. She is a vampire, and she gets basically put into this arranged marriage with a werewolf, the alpha werewolf of his clan. This is a political situation because of the politics between the vampires and the werewolves. But also, the reason that she agrees to it is that her best friend, who is a human, has been missing for some time, and she's trying to find her. And the only clue that she has as to what may have happened suggests that maybe there might be some werewolf involvement. So there is a mystery at play. That's just one mystery. There are multiple mysteries in this book. That's just one. So there's mystery, there is romance, and the romance in this book is so good. It is a slow burn. It really is a slow burn, but I think the payoff is so good when it happens. It does get steamy at times, yes, but again, because it's such a slow burn, I feel like the steam only happens like towards the end of the book. But there's a lot of steam without stuff actually happening. Like, I feel like a scene between two characters can be sexy without them even having to touch each other, and I think this book does such a good job at that. there's humor in here. There's humor, which I absolutely love. Any book that has like any sort of humor in it, automatically going to be a favorite of mine. So the humor, the characters, there's so many great side characters. The characters in the werewolf pack, the characters on the vampire side, the human characters. Oh my god, there are so many. Clearly you can see I could gush about this book all day. It was such a surprise how much I loved this book because I did not expect to enjoy this book as much as I did. So that is why it's so high on my list, because it was such a surprise. Such a surprise how much I loved it, how much fun I had with it. Yeah, it's not going to be for everyone because it's a romantasy, but oh my god, I loved it. So now we're getting into my top 4. And if you've seen past lists that I've done like this, you will know that the only books that make it into the top are the books that have actually gave me a physical reaction. And not many books do that. So that's why there's only 4 this year. And when I mean physical reaction, I mean I gasp, a tear, a shiver, like some sort of physical manifestation. And yes, all 4 of these books gave me some sort of physical reaction, and that is why they are at the top of my list. So my 4th favorite book of the year is going to be Starling House by Alix E. Harrow. First book by Alix E. Harrow, definitely not going to be my last. So we have a young girl, she's down on her luck, she's living with her brother in a motel. Her mother passed away, so like they only have each other. Her brother's sick, so she's constantly having to like scrimp and scrape and hustle and bustle and, I don't know, trick people to try and get money for his medication. There's a mysterious house in town called Starling House where no one ever goes in, no one ever goes out. There's a lot of mystery around this house, but one day she happens to meet who she thinks is the owner of the house, and the owner offers her a job, like, hey, if you want to come clean the house, I'll pay you. And of course she cannot resist the lure of the house or the lure of this money. But when she finally gets into the house, she starts to notice some weird stuff going on. Ooh. Not only that, but there are outside forces that are also interested in the house. There is this corporation, and the corporation is basically like, hey, you're getting into the house. We haven't been able to get in. If you spy for us and give us information, we'll pay you money. So, of course, at first, she's like, yeah, like, extra money, of course, why not? But as she kind of falls in love with the house, she feels, starts to feel like maybe giving away information might be wrong. But oh man, this corporation is like, whew, oh my god. Like, the woman, I forgot the character's name, that is like the corporate person that's kind of in charge. She's like the epitome of evil. Oh my god. She is an amazing villain because she is like evil to her core. The lengths that she goes to try and manipulate our main character into getting what she wants, getting the information about the house. She goes after her family, she goes after friends, she goes after her livelihood. I mean, some truly heinous stuff. And I love a good villain, and oh man, do I think she is a good villain. And yeah, some of the things that she did, like, really made me feel a certain type of way. So I didn't get like emotional, but I definitely got the shivers reading this because there were so many dark moments that were so deliciously good and so deliciously evil. So yeah, this is definitely a dark fantasy, a gothic fantasy. I absolutely loved it. My 3rd favorite book of the year is going to be The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I'm not going to say too much about this one because I just reviewed it, so if you want to see my full breakdown, you can go check out that video. All I will say here is that, yeah, this book made me emotional at the end. It really did. It got me in the feels. For the first half of this book, I didn't like it. I didn't know where it was going. I wasn't invested. I felt my hopes kind of going down. But the second half of this book, and this is why I don't DNF, because the second half of this book was just amazing. It more than made up for it. It was just an absolute, yeah, it was so stunning. It was so moving. It was so heartfelt. And I totally got invested. And I was so surprised about what happened. And I think the message in this book is something that's just really beautiful and really special. So, yeah, it got me. It got me in the feels at the end. It got me emotional. And I'm not ashamed to say that. So, yeah, that is why this is on my list because, yeah, it just ended up being really special at the end. Okay, top two, almost done. Getting hot here, but my second favorite book of the year is going to be My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. Yes, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this horror book made it all the way to number two, but to me, this book is so, so, so special. It's about two young girls who are best friends growing up in the 80s, and one of them, something happens to them one night where they basically kind of disappear, and when they come back they're like not the same. And the best friend, she knows something's wrong with her friend. Like, she knows in her core, like, this is my best friend, this is my person that I love, like, there's something wrong with her. But through most of the book, like, no one will listen. No matter who she tries to tell, no matter what she does, no one will listen to her. So to me, half the horror in this book comes from the fact that there is this young girl calling out for help, screaming it practically in some parts, and no one will listen to her. Not her other friends, not teachers, not her parents, not like school counselors, a preacher, a pastor. No one will listen to this poor girl, and it's so truly horrifying because these type of things happen in real life. Not the demonic possession, but I mean, like, the fact that young women are crying out for help and, like, no one will listen to them. Like, that is truly horrifying. But the reason that I love this book so much is kind of twofold. One, I think that the friendship between the girls is just so beautifully realized. It really did remind me of, like, my relationships with my best friends. As like women, when you have a best friend, another female best friend, it's more, you're more than just friends. You're sisters. And that's what I feel like this book really showed, is that these two girls weren't just best friends. They were sisters. Like, they meant so much to each other. That ride or die, like, I'll do anything for you, like, I'll help you bury the body. And I think this book just described that so well that it just reminded me of my best friends, and I really connected with that. I really connected with that so hard. Yes, there are some pretty horrifying parts in here. Like, it does get graphic and gruesome and bloody at times. But again, I feel like most of the book's horror comes from, like, real world situations. So yeah, so by the time we get to the end of the book, and how the way that things are resolved and how the girls end up, I was just so moved. I was so moved. And again, I did grow up in the 80s, so a lot of the pop culture references I was also familiar with. So yeah, I connected with this book on such a personal level. I was so moved by the end. I never thought a horror book would make me, like, tear up, but this one definitely did. So this book is not going to be for everyone, but that's okay. That is why this is my list, and I just love this book so, so, so much. Oh, and my sick brain forgot to mention that it was actually E.D. Lewis that inspired me to read this one, so I am so glad that I did. So what could possibly beat that, you might ask? My number one pick for 2024 is going to be Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. Some of you may remember Six of Crows was one of my favorites, if not the favorite, from last year. And I did not think that the sequel could possibly, like, live up to Six of Crows, because Six of Crows was so fantastic. But let me tell you, Crooked Kingdom is also freaking phenomenal. Phenomenal. I cried multiple times reading this book. Once it was in anger and in sadness because there is a character death that happens in the book that I was super upset about. And at first I thought it could not possibly be true. I was like, no, this must be like part of a heist. This character's gonna come back. Like, they're gonna survive. They're gonna be fine. Like, this can't possibly be what's happening. And then it was, and I was like, no! And I was crushed. And then, as if that wasn't bad enough, then at the very end of the book, there is a more heartwarming moment type scene that also teared me up so bad because of the characters involved. Because that's the thing about Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. The character work and the characters are just amazing. If you've read Six of Crows, you know. Leigh Bardugo does such a good job with her characters, and these characters, you just can't help but fall in love with them. And they all have their flaws. They all have their, they all have things about them that aren't perfect, but at the end of the day, like, they really do come together. They are a family, and two of my absolute favorite characters in particular, Kaz and Inej. Just something happens at the end of the book. You're never going to guess what it is unless you've read it. That just literally made me like start bawling. It was so sweet, and it was so perfect for these characters if you know them at all. It was just perfect. Chef's kiss. So yeah, Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. I don't think there's a more perfect duology out there, and fantasy is my first love, so that's why I did pick this one above my best friend's Exorcism. So yeah, fantasy is my first love. This book got me in the feels twice, which is unheard of. So that is why Crooked Kingdom is my favorite book of 2024. That is it for me today. I need to go rest my voice and probably cool down a little bit because of the bright light. But before I do want to know from you. I want to know what your favorite books from 2024 were. Did we have any of the same favorites? Let me know in the comments section below. And as always, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe to my channel for more bookish stuff coming your way soon. All right, everyone, happy reading and Happy New Year.